here to discuss all things NRL and anything sports related. Please give a warm Aussie g'day to the footy fanatic and America's own Corey Jackson in Outside the Sheds.
Greetings and salutations and welcome back to Outside the Sheds. Shedheads, first off, I apologize for my guest host or my fill-in host last week, Kermit the Frog. I heard from feedback that he was all right, but wow, that was a brutal sounding individual. And I really deeply apologize for him croaking for over an hour at you on the last episode of Outside the Sheds. But the great thing about this is I know he can't be that bad because you're back this week. You've opened your doors. You've opened your cupboards. You've opened up your vaults to let the Shedadamus back into your hearts. And here I am to give you joy and mirth, even though it's not the holiday season. But welcome back. One of the reasons you can guess why I'm still going, okay, let's be honest, I'm really only going at about 70%, because right now my body's kind of like last weekend's games where teams got out to a big lead, so I thought I was feeling a lot better, and then all of a sudden I got run down from the sickness that seems to, for some reason, not want to leave my throat vocal area. But I'm here, and that's what we do. We play hurt sometimes, right? You strap it up, and we go back out. This isn't a high contact. This isn't I just been brushed or grazed on the chin. No, we're here to fight, and we're here to do it together. And that's what we're doing week in and week out on Outside the Sheds. Now, I said a second ago why I'm so exuberant about this week's episode is, my God, what did we just experience this last weekend? I think we've always known in sports that no lead is ever big enough. And the moment you let up on the gas, all gas, no brakes, as they say, right? The moment you let up on that accelerator, somebody might be still hammering it on the floor behind you. Like, that's right. I'm getting a vision of Mel back in the day, going down, the Fury Road. Wait a second, that's not Mel. The Road Warrior, okay? Or some of you say down under, Mad Max 2. Love it. But anyway, so you got that thing pumping and you're going on your V8 Interceptor and you're blowing down the road. You let up on that, who's right behind you? That's right, the people you don't want to be. And about 3 teams found that out this weekend. But just the footy that we got to experience was just, and it started right out of the gates with the Dolphins and the Eels. Dolphins 20, Eels 16. I will tell you, since Mitchell Moses has returned, the Eels' fortunes have started to rise. The problem is you still have the Dylan Brown saga that's kind of hanging over their heads, and the team is still off just a little bit. But the one thing you cannot say, and that's right, Blue and Gold Nation, I'm standing by your side right now when I say this, the Eels are fighting. And I don't know if this is because Mitch is fighting hard to get in that the Blues jersey for State of Origin. I know he's in a big battle with Jerome Luai right now. We won't talk about Jerome's performance down there in Melbourne. But they're playing a strong brand of footy. Jason Riles, his hair's gray. He may look more like Brad Arthur in about a year or two. But they're fighting, and they're playing all right footy. The problem is, when you're on that cusp of playing good football and you can't seem to get over the top, every type of tiny little smidgen of doorway that you leave open, a team's going to kick it down. And that was the difference. And that thing that kicked it down was the boot of Asako. Because him not missing a conversion was the difference in this game, the 4 points difference. And the Finns and Christian Wolf come out on top of the Blue and Gold Army. A really good match, though, and I think we kind of got that feeling right there that, okay, that was a good match to kind of start off and kick off the round. And then what happens? It just totally explodes. Titans 24, Knights 20, in an epic collapse, Shedheads. And I stress that enough. In an epic collapse that kind of is a microcosm of what the Knights season has been up to this point. And it really was. Like, I can't even fathom being in Adam O'Brien's shoes right there, watching Your team looking like they're starting to come around a little bit. You know, you're starting to get some points on the board. The offense seems to be kicking a little bit. You're actually doing it without Kalen Ponga a little bit. Sharp's playing well. And then all of a sudden, like I said, I love to use this term, the back tire goes past the front of the car at 50 miles per hour. And the word uh-oh is what we're going to use here on this digital platform. But you're probably saying something else. And that is what the Knights did. I'm like, when was the last time we saw a Knights team get booed off the field by that epic, and I mean this, epic fan base that's up there in the Hunter? I'm saying those are some loyal fans up in Newcastle. Newcastle is not a club that I just support, but I support that fan base, and I really want to go up and see a match in Newcastle. Not done that yet. Got really close friends that live not too far. Been to Newcastle, just not been to the stadium. But to see that fan base react that way, that is so loyal. You watch them. There was a guy, you remember the game? I think it was last season when the guy was in a full diving rig. Like he had the mask, he had the what am I trying to say? The snorkel. He had the fins, and he's sitting there in a torrential downpour watching his beloved Knights. That's what we're talking about as a fan base for Newcastle. And they really let down. I think the perfect example and picture of this match was the shot of Desi Hasler sitting up in the box with his mouth agape, wondering how the hell they just won that game. And I think that was exactly what we all felt, was Desi looking that way. And I wouldn't be surprised. That was such a big victory for Desi, which I don't think he thought he was getting ready to get, with the whole David Fafita saga, which we have not even dove into too deeply. But, this guy is really tight-roping it right now, Dez is. I've even had this feeling, and I've kind of got a little bit of a buzz, that Kevin Walters might be buzzing around there as the next coach of the Gold Coast Titans. Not saying it's happened by any means, and Dez keeps winning. Kieran Ford is back this week. So maybe this team is about ready to start that Gold Coast Titans second half of the season explosion that they seem to do. But we'll have to see. But very, very disappointing for the Newcastle Knights. That game goes into parlaying to Rabbitohs 22, Broncos 14. This is a game that I just paused right there because I almost didn't even know what to do. But the Brisbane Broncos up 14-0 at halftime. A understaffed, a team that's got more guys on the shelf than almost has on the field of strike. But don't forget one player that wasn't on the sideline. And that is Latrell Mitchell. And I'm going to go into a deep dive about some of these just rock stars. And I know the commercial that's out there about rock stars. But these just giants of the game that have just showed themselves this week. But Latrell beyond showed himself why he is box office, why when he is dialed in, he may be the biggest force in rugby league. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. The things that guy slotting that kick from half field, like listening to the guys on 9 in the box describe that, and just, I don't think I've heard Gus that excited since the last time he was raving about Lachlan Galvin. That's how giddy Gus was, right? And it's just one of those moments. And like the moment that just made you just, as a guy, right, testosterone kicking, you're just pumping your chest, was watching the nonchalance as Latrell just turns his back, knowing he just slotted it, and walking back to kick off. Dude, that was legend stuff right there. That was legend. But anyway, Rabbitohs turn around, go in there, seal it up. I'm going to go into a deeper dive on this. But the Bunnies, again, what do I always tell you, Shedheads? Time and time again, when all the money looks like it's going one direction, bet the other way. And nobody barely... Wait a second. That's right. Your Shedadamus picked the Rabbitohs. Or Kermit the Frog did last week. But big victory for Clint Eastwood's boys. And now with Alex Johnson coming back this week, you wonder if they can put two in a row together. we'll have to wait and see. Bulldogs 32, Raiders 20. Another match. I'm happy I keep my hair sheared down tight because I'd be pulling it right now because that was a game of two halves. And I want to know, because we have an epic fan base for Outside the Sheds. Willow and the group down there in the nation's capital, Canberra, like epic people that love this show, right? I've got to know from you shed heads at Canberra, what did the beer taste like in the first half compared to the second half? Because I'm going to tell you something. I almost popped one myself here. And the Shedadamus is still dry. Still have not had a drink since Vegas. Listen to that, huh? Not a drink since Vegas. Anyway, and I almost popped one after that first half because I had picked, the Raiders. I just thought that was going to be a tough trip down for the doggies. And then the second half happened. And again, one of these players, and I think you know who I'm talking about, is getting a deeper dive here when we do a breakdown of this round in deeper detail. But, wow. I don't even know where you start, but we'll say this. Stephen Crichton, captain, is definitely personified right there with a gigantic C on his chest, like he's the captain of the Montreal Canadiens, where you put that C on your chest and you let everybody know it, because that is what that man did. And the funny thing is, it was epic for one side and not epic for the other side. You looked at Ricky after the match, and he almost didn't know what to say. He was stoic because he was sitting up there. You had the whole Jamin Salmon, his little situation where he couldn't find the right camera to tell everybody he was a weak-gutted dog. Something we thought was all dead, right? We thought that would have been put to bed. The families in turmoil, Hatfields versus the McCoys. And all of a sudden, he has to bring it up when he scores a try, pointing at his chest. I'm going to say something. I have no problem if you're going to brab. If you're going to brab too if you want. But karma's a funny thing, because how many minutes after the old weak-gutted dog pointed at his jersey that he was being carried from the field with an ankle, and now he's out up to 10 weeks. So, be careful about that. I just be careful. But what an incredible game of footy. What an incredible game of footy all the way around. Warriors 15, Dragons 14, the Cardiac Waz. That's what we're about ready to call these guys now. The Cardiac Waz, do it again. Luke Metcalf, this guy's having a breakout season. And I think a lot of people forget this guy was pretty much let go by Cronulla, right? Because Cronulla had such a full backfield. They had too many. They let him pretty much go with not much to say to the Warriors. And now this guy has to be one of the players of the season so far after 10 rounds. I know it's baffling, because after watching the performance that he had in Vegas, this guy is just born again. He's got such guts. He even sat on the sideline after the game with Fletch and Hindy to get grilled a little bit, all right? That's how good Luke Metcalf is feeling about himself. But he kicks another game winner. This team there's something special going down in New Zealand for the Waz. The way that rugby league is starting to get embraced and loved down in New Zealand. Hey, I'm a realist. I'm not saying that the Kiwis or the Warriors are getting ready to pass the All Blacks. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that there is a groundswell in New Zealand for rugby league right now. And I think we all know how great of players that country produces in the game of rugby. And rugby league as well. Sean Johnson, Benji Marshall, and I could just keep on going, right? And that's just over the last 15 years. So it is exciting to see. It's exciting to see the world of rugby league just exploding in so many places right now. And the Waz are a spearhead to why the love of the game is so strong now in New Zealand, and it's great to see, and they get another victory. And as excited as I am about the Waz getting another victory, you just have to just kind of grab your forehead and act like you got a migraine for the Red V. Because that team just cannot seem to get they just can't seem to get a break whatsoever, right? They're almost in every match. I think the only match they haven't been in recently, which was kind of a blowout, was the Anzac Day match against the Chooks. But they fight hard week in and week out. It's just a mistake here, a bad kick here, and the next thing you know, the rest, there it goes, down the drain. But I don't know. I know how good of a coach Shane Flanagan is, and I believe in him, and I know he'll get this thing sorted out and figured out. But this competition is just so tough right now. There's so many teams that are fighting to get in that 8 that are right there. And we're watching. And that, to us, as the fan of the game, that is why we're getting great matches week after week now. And now that the refs have put away the whistles a little bit, and the bunker is doing what the bunker should, and that's being quiet usually, we're really getting some good footy. Panthers 30, Cowboys 30. Hold on, let me see that again. Panthers 30, Cowboys 30. Again, the wackiness of round 10 continues. That game was just strike after strike after strike. The Pink Panthers looking like they were back. I think they had a 12-point lead, looking like they were getting ready to coast in. And then that crazy Cowboys team. They are the Wild Bill Hickoks of Cowboys, right? They're trick shooters. They're just a fascinating team. But again, what do? They pull it into freaking OT, and then nobody can find a way of scoring in Golden Point. I would have never thought a team that has Nathan Cleary on it would not be able to win a game in Golden Point. I'm saying the guy's got a magical foot. Let's be honest. We've seen him make some pretty incredible kicks. And when you start seeing the way that game was going, you started to kind of get that feeling that both these teams were going to get bit in a way where they were going to just get done. They were just going to giving us 90 minutes of just in-your-face footy. And both teams were going to be looking at the middle at the end going, wow, boy, we have a lot to show for that. And that's, I guess they each get a point. But, when you play that game for as long as those two teams had just played, and that is the result that you get, that's pretty disheartening. But I enjoyed it. I do still feel that the Penny Panthers are knocking on the door. Again, I'm going to say something again because he's not in my deep dive of the players from this round, but I'm going to mention right now. I said it last week. Go back to the tapes. Blaise Talangi is coming into his own. 4 try assists, and he's getting more and more comfortable. And that's why I say if the Panthers can just stay close, this team is going to be beyond dangerous late in the season. And if they just get in the top 8, they will wreak havoc like we haven't seen a team in the bottom 4 do for a very, very, very long time in the finals this year. But again, 30-30. Now I don't have much to say about this next one, but Storm 64, Tigers nothing. I'll just say this: Ryan Pappenhausen puts the match to bed early. That's what we'll say. Pappy doing Pappy things, ending the Tigers, putting them on the endangered species list, and blanking them down in Melbourne. Not much else to say about that. It just was bad. It was just bad if you're a Tigers supporter. We've got some new loyal fans down that are Melbourne fans, and they were talking him up to me a little bit about Money Munster, and we know Munster's money. He's a larrikin. We all know that, but Money didn't have much to do with the game. Well, let's not say that. They scored 11 tries. Okay, so everybody had something to do with it. But yeah, just a really, really. You just don't play Melbourne on a fast, dry track in the afternoon because you're in trouble. And let's remember, this Tigers team is one of the top defensive teams in the competition. And they look like a wooden spoon Tigers club from a couple years ago. Like they just got boat raced. They were never in it. And I can't tell you the last time I've seen Jerome Luai kind of giving a look like, man, I can't. He's still never won down in Melbourne. Jerome hasn't. But, then you have the scandal after the match when his dad tweeted something or, whatever about, talking about his out clause with the Tigers. We don't need any of that. You don't need any of that right there. And hopefully Luai, sometimes, when we get up there in age a little bit, you might need to get corrected, if you know what I mean. But yeah, Melbourne Storm doing Melbourne Storm things. That's all you can say about that. And then to finish it, Sharks 30, Seagulls 14. The strife continues for the Manly Seagulls since the Daly Cherry Evans blow up, whatever you want to say, his notification of impending departure. That's pretty good. Say that 5 times fast. But those are the things that we're talking about right now. The chemistry of a club. And if for as long as I've watched and followed Manly, I would have never thought DCE would be the guy that might unsettle the ship that allows it to take in water. But something's going on down there. And I'm just sad that it's DCE. I don't care if you're a Manly hater, because don't forget, they hate you too. But to see that this guy is the reason that this is culminating, that this team just doesn't have that cohesion, that chemistry that sometimes we see. But at the same time, you have to say that Cronulla is starting to look like they are starting to come together. And one of the things, and one of the reasons I think Cronulla, besides Ronaldo waving bye to the fans and still staying public enemy number one to anybody but Cronulla Shark supporters, Nico Hines. Nico Hines is starting to, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a matter of Nico saying, I don't care anymore, and I'm just going to go out there and have fun and play my footy. I don't know what it is, but I do know that for the last 2 weeks, he's getting more and more comfortable. And one of the things I've noticed that he's doing is he's running the ball more and getting tackled earlier in the game, which they've always said a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL, or your gridiron, as you say, down under, will always say that they need to get hit that first time to really kind of knock the cobwebs off, to let them know they're in a game, right? It lets them feel like they're back in it, the competition. All right, now we're ready to play type of stuff. And if you watch Nico early in the season, he almost was letting Trindle kind of run stuff, and he was kind of staying back and kind of waiting for the ball a little bit more. And he wasn't attacking the line. He wasn't pushing play. And that's not Nico, right? Or that's not Dally M Nico, for sure. And really, as Tricky's kind of taken a little bit of a back seat, the last couple of weeks, Nico's really kind of raring into form. And I'm not the only guy who's noticed this. I've heard quite a few pundits say this, that Nico looks like he's coming into it. That's why I'm so excited for this Storm Sharks match, because there's a lot of flavor in the history of these two clubs. A lot of flavor. People giving each other the hands back in the day. Paul Gallen's hatred for Melbourne. Cameron Smith getting, clapped off the field the only time he's ever been sent off. There's a lot of history between these two clubs. And that's why I'm really feeling that we're going to get an incredible match out of Nico Hines for Super Saturday, that last game, that Saturday night game. It's going to be something. It's going to be something. Now, I wish it was a night game for me, because it's going to be like a 5 a.m. match for me, but that's something else. But I'm excited. This is, I'm jazzed. This round 11 is going to be good, and I feel it. I really feel that there's some goodness. There's some special moments coming, Shedheads. Some special moments that are getting ready to knock on the door, plain and simple. Now, let's go into the breakdown of this last round. I said there were some things I wanted to really touch on. And I want to start out by saying greatness is an individual skill that a lot of time doesn't link up, right? And what I mean by that is greatness is usually one thing, individual skill is usually something else. But the moment we see the two come together, it's magic, right? It's those moments, and I always go back to this, it's those moments like we watched Nathan Cleary a couple years ago in the grand final, the last 20 minutes, say, not happening. We're not losing, right? And when you have a sport that is not tennis, where it's not one-on-one or two-on-two in doubles, but when you have 13 people aside and an individual says no, and the entire stadium shakes, okay? That's what I'm talking about, when greatness and individual skill come together, because it's earth-shaking stuff. And we got 3 incredible moments of players doing that and in just imposing their will on matches this week. The first one, and I know who you guys know, Shedheads, who I'm going to go with, is Latrell Mitchell. And I will say this right now. I don't understand. I don't live day to day in downtown Sydney or up in the Hunter or down in Melbourne. But there is an undercurrent in Australia, more in Australia and New Zealand, because I don't think anybody cares about that in New Zealand like this, that for some reason Latrell Mitchell is public enemy number 1 in some people's eyes. And I'm praying that it's not because he might not look like Cameron Smith, if you know what I mean. And I hope it's not that. But I know every country has its deep-rooted problems. But I don't understand it. But I will say something. I kind of think of Latrell Mitchell a lot like an incredible NFL player that played back in the 60s over here in the divided states by the name of James Brown. Now, a lot of people know James Brown because he ended up doing some acting, right? But he was an incredible football player. And Jim Brown was one. I don't want to confuse you. James Brown is an incredible get on up singer. James Brown to some. Jim Brown is the guy that I'm talking about. So let's start with Jim Brown, Shedheads. Anyway, Jim Brown, even to this date, some people say was the greatest running back in NFL history. I think there's a movie that they played about him called The Express that if you want to watch, I think it was a Disney-made film, and the things that he had to go through playing back then. But he was more than just an NFL player. He was an incredible lacrosse player at Syracuse. He was a huge figure in the civil rights movement in the 60s in the divided states. And he was an actor and friends with Muhammad Ali. The guy was a force of nature, right? But during the time when Jim Brown played, he was a little bit polarizing to some people. And I think you guys can guess why. But it took a little bit of time to happen for people to go, wow, we just watched something special. This guy is beyond special. And so special that some people, like I say, still say he's one of the greatest players to ever play the game. But Latrell and Jim Brown have one major thing in common. And by no means it's not the color of their skin. It's the ability to take over a game and leave crowds in awe of the skill that they have. And, everyone right now is talking about the clutch kick, right, that Latrell did. And I just started this podcast by talking about him slotting that thing. And even before it's even crossed the crossbar and gone between the posts, he's already turning around and just storming back. Step 1, step 2, back to the halfway line to kick off, right? And his teammates are jumping all over him in slow motion. Incredible images, and But when you watch a guy doing that seismic shift that I'm talking about, to me the moment was when Dean Mariner looked like he was going to score, And Latrell comes out of nowhere and just hits him and ragdolls him and takes him into touch. And there's even a look a little bit on D. Mariner's face going, wow, whoa, that was one intense, but that guy just did that. Because, we're not talking little Braley running down the field and Latrell getting a hold of him. D. Mariner's a solid dude. And Latrell just, no, you're not scoring on me. And hit him and took him into touch. But that is what this guy can do. It's just to me so awe-inspiring watching that, right? And then you have that other side that kind of keeps him as the anti-hero or the villain to others, because the try he scored at the final whistle when he looks like he's going to take a knee and then all of a sudden, goes across and scores. Now, come on, Shedheads. I expect a little bit more from you than this, because let's remember something. There is bad blood between South Sydney and Brisbane. And a lot of it still stems from Clint Eastwood himself, Wayne Bennett, the way that he was kind of bustled out of Brisbane. We're going in a different direction, blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of feeling in the Sheds between these two teams when they go head-to-head against each other. So don't think for a second that Latrell doesn't know that. Don't think that Latrell doesn't love Wayne Bennett. And don't think for a second that he wouldn't want to really drive that stake home. Hey, I know a lot of you guys. Come on now. Aussie, you guys have two incredible world champion UFC fighters. And how many times do we see after a UFC fight when the referee, before he can dive on that carcass that's on the ground, that last fighter gets that last punch in on the guy who's already watching angels or wings go around in circles as he stares up into the sky, right? That's what just happened right there. That was a culmination. That was the final kiss, as you would say, to the chin for the Broncos. And it leaves a lot of people talking about what's going on with Madge up in Brisbane. And that is for a whole different topic of discussion. But I will say right now, that performance that we just saw showed the rugby league world again who Latrell Mitchell is. And it also, and let me say this again, stressing, it also booked a package to Latrell's mailbox, which would be a New South Wales Blues jersey for State of Origin. Because that, my friends, was booked after what we just saw. So that's number one, Latrell Mitchell. Number two, Ryan Pappenhausen. Pappy to the people who love him. Pulling off a feat I don't know if I've seen before. And that is a treble. 3 tries scored in what? 10 minutes? 20 minutes? I guess it was 16 minutes, right? Yeah, 16 minutes, Shedheads. 16 minutes. A try of the 3rd, 8th, and 16th minute. He single-handedly put the Tigers on ice before some people probably even took their seat in the stands. It was awe-inspiring. That first try that he did where he single-handedly kicked the ball twice and dove, almost like Star Wars, dove between the 2 closing doors to grab the ball and slam it down. Just wow. And I think everybody knew when Pappenhausen did that try that it was going to be a long day for the West Tigers. Everybody, I think, knew that because it showed right there Pappy was in groove, and when Pappy's in groove, usually the Storm are in groove. And what it does is it takes the pressure off of Money, it takes the pressure off of Hughes, and that spine just starts to dictate, right? And I haven't even talked about Grant or anybody else. I'm just saying those 3 players right there are the barometer of what's going on with that thunderstorm that's the Melbourne Storm. And to me, the whole Pappenhausen story, what makes it such a beautiful thing, is watching that guy perform like that and then thinking and remembering where he just was recently. This is a player, Shedheads, the game, we forget about things so much and so quickly nowadays. We forget that this man's career was almost, extinguished. He had 2 severe lower body injuries. And I'm saying he actually came to the Divided States. He was in Philadelphia training. And I know the normal person, when you get that second knock like that, you tap. You're like, I'm not going through rehab. I'm not going through this all over again. And I remember when it came back that he said, "Oh, I'll be back. I'll be back." And, I think all of us just said, we hope he is. But I don't know if anybody 100% really said, wow, I can't wait to see Ryan Papenhausen again. I think we were all holding our breath that we were going to see Papenhausen again, right? Because when you have lower body injuries like that, usually, let's be honest, you lose a step, at least. Usually a couple. And so, as we all heard that he was coming back and we all knew that he was getting ready to take a field, the first thing I noticed when I saw Papenhausen back on the field was he was jacked, right? Pappenhausen was jacked. Like, he's never going to be, just shredded like Zach or somebody like that, but like Lomax. But he was put together. I'm saying strongest I've ever seen the guy. And so then you start worrying that with the extra weight from the muscle, that, yeah, he's really probably going to have lost a step. And you know what, Shedheads? That guy has proven us all wrong, because he has not lost a step. His speed is still electric. He's always just sitting there on the outside. And don't forget, he's been coached up by Billy Slater, too. Maybe some people say the best to ever do the fullback position. So when you watch him play, the moment that he can explode through, he's gone. And to have that, you've got to have that speed. And, Pappenhausen has it. It's such a great story. And I'm not one of those guys that bleeds purple, right? But I love watching great players. I love watching Money. I love watching Pappy. Jerome Hughes is, to me, one of the most underrated players in the game. Munster. There's a lot of guys on that team that I root for success, right? But Pappenhausen has a special place to me in my heart because of what he has had to come back through. And the saddest part about the whole story is no matter how well this guy's playing right now, he's still probably going to be blocked out of putting that number 1 jersey on his back for New South Wales. And I can argue that he might be right now the most informed fullback in the competition, because right now I almost think it's a battle for number 1 in the fullback position between Pappenhausen and James Tedesco. And Teddy is playing incredible footy right now. I would right now say Teddy's probably 1A because he's just a nonstop locomotive from the back. But for straight up explosion, you got to go with Pappenhausen, because no matter how efficient and thorough Dylan Edwards does not have the explosive speed of Ryan Pappenhausen. He's just that player that's always being smart in the situation and also positioning himself where he needs to be. That's Dylan Edwards. Because don't forget, 5 years ago, there was talk that Dylan Edwards didn't even need to be the one for Penrith. And now he is the incumbent fullback for New South Wales. So it's just really kind of disheartening to me that Pappenhausen is going to be possibly blocked out of a number 1 jersey for State of Origin. And he might, because of that, not even make the number 14 to be a sub on the bench. I do think he'll be invited into Blues camp, but I find it hard to believe that they're going to have him sitting on the bench for the Blues. But where there is doors closed, there are doors opened. And unfortunately for the rest of the competition, that means you're going to have to deal with Ryan Pappenhausen during the State of Origin period. And that's another striking weapon that the Melbourne Storm is going to have. And with money out, it is going to be very, very key for Melbourne to continue to stay in that top 2. They're going to have to keep winning. And if Pappenhausen is not with the Blues, they're in good form. And they are going to be just as dangerous, even with the loss of Munster going forward. So it's going to be interesting. Like I said, this next 2 weeks is going to be it's going to be sick. It's going to be maddening all the way around. But Pappenhausen, my number 2. My number 3, and I come on, you guys all know who I'm going to say. And that to me is the captain right now, Stephen Crichton. To me, that performance that we just watched down in Canberra may have just stamped Stephen Crichton as being the best player in the competition. And I know there's a lot of people that are going to say, oh my gosh, they're kicking their chairs out right now and standing up, right? Oh boy. But I don't know, besides, like I said, Nathan in the grand final, I don't know when the last time I saw, because that match was so crazy. The Raiders looked like they were about ready to run away with that thing, right? They just look like it's over. We're going to win this thing. We're going to do some Viking claps, and we're going to make sure Ricky doesn't blow his knee out by jumping up and down the sideline. That's what it looked like was going to happen. But when the Dogs came out in the second half, and Stephen Crichton started adjusting his headgear, that guy became a force of nature. And he scores the first try to open the second half. And then he spearheads the attack that puts down 3 tries in the opening 10 minutes of the second half. And the second try, I think it was, I almost thought they were replaying the first try almost. Besides the fact when he started to palm the ball and start to do like, no, it's not over here. It's not over here. Like he was doing a magic trick. But it was some crazy, crazy stuff. And this guy they didn't slow down. They didn't slow down for a second. Because with the combination of speed, strength, and flair, Crichton leads the Dogs on a 32-point jaunt. Shut out the Raiders in the second half. And, the rest is history. The drums are all beating and not the big drum, right? Down in Raider country. Just a insane match. But it left us all looking at Stephen Crichton going, wow, this dude is not just, he's one of the best players, hands down, in the game. And then it makes you go back and wonder why Cameron Ciraldo, when he went over from the Panthers to the Dogs, and that first year he just, everybody started to question if Gus made a mistake, running in the middle of the night with a bandana around his mouth and stealing Cameron Ciraldo out of Penrith, right? The great bank job or something like that, where Cameron Ciraldo looked like he was kind of a deer in headlights a little bit that first season. And then all of a sudden, he gets Stephen Crichton. And this guy just instantly named captain. And what does this guy do? The fortunes of the Dogs just continued to ascend the moment that guy put on that royal blue and white jersey. They've just, so much so now, they are the toast of the town. They're the number 1 team of the competition after 10 rounds. And a team that, if you remember, a couple seasons ago, they didn't even have a sponsor on the front of the jersey because of just the off the field craziness and the disenchantment with this club that was such a prideful club. Now is, with the Melbourne Storm, considered the favorite to win the whole competition. And it's all, to me, because of that guy. Because they follow that guy. And it's all going to come down to this. And this is what I'm really, really curious about, Shedheads. Is we know Stephen Crichton is going to be a Blues player. He's going to play, God forbid he doesn't get injured, knock on wood. He's going to play all 3 games of State of Origin. It will be very, very interesting for me to watch to see how the Bulldogs go without his calming voice and presence in the sheds with that team. It's going to be very interesting. And I think we're going to find out a lot about the Dogs when this period of time happens. But no matter what happens during State of Origin, that doesn't take away what the Bulldogs are now and why they are the Bulldogs. And it comes down to their skipper. And what an incredible epic moment of watching that second half that I'm still playing in my mind as I'm talking to you right now, but incredible. So those are my 3. That was my breakdown of that. I had to talk about those 3 players because they left such an impression on me from an incredible weekend of football. Now, Shedheads, as we go into the 40-20, I did not report on this story because there was still a lot of stuff up in the air, but after last week's show was recorded, news broke that the NRL has announced that the Perth Bears are their 18th club in the competition, and the club will start playing in 2027. So that's not a lot of time. That's not a lot of time to get a club together, but I know I have a very, very close family to me that are huge Bears royalty, and I know Jim had a few tears that was going down his face, him and Peter. So I'm happy for both those 2 gentlemen about that incredible announcement that the North Sydney Bears were back and alive. Now, they're the now Perth Bears, we understand. But we understand the heritage. It's taken them 26 years to get back into the NRL. And now they're going to be partnered with a strong heritage, which is the Western Reds as well. And you've got to bring those 2 powerhouses together. And yeah, that now you're talking about another tough road trip for clubs to go into Western Australia. And you have to know that they're going to play some games in North Sydney as well. So this team is going to be, it may take a little bit, and it's going to be really, really tough for them because they don't have a large window to get everything set up. But they did just announce their CEO, Anthony, I'm going to say this right, DeSegli, probably. Hopefully I said that right. But, this is a guy who was a former director of news and current affair at 7 and West Media, in West Media. So he definitely has, a little bit of understanding by every means it looks like of the news and the media. So he's going to be able to slant and get stories and get things out there. If the Godfather himself appoints you, you know that you've got to have something going on for your Peter Volandis. So they've got that in place right now. Now the things you start talking about, who's going to be the coach. And I know for a very long time, it had been talked about that that Brad Arthur was going to be the head coach for the Perth Bears. But all of a sudden now, you've got some rumblings about 2 other figures. And first and foremost is Rabbitoh's legend and current Warrington Wolves coach, Sammy Burgess. It looks like he's kind of thrown his hat in the ring there. I don't really see that, though. I think we all know that Sam Burgess is probably going to end up the head coach of South Sydney when Wayne finally retires. I think that is what's going to happen there. So I really don't think Sam is... I think he wants to keep his name relevant, so he's definitely put his name out there. But I don't think Sam Burgess is going there. But here is the joker that's come in, the wild card that's just hit, and that is ex-Raiders and Kangaroos legend Mal Meninga saying that he would love to be the coach of the Perth Bears. Now, if I'm Brad Arthur and his agent, I'm sweating a little bit. Because we know what Mal is. Mal is a force of nature. Mal, instantly puts credibility in the Perth Bears. if Mal Meninga steps down as the national coach to coach them. So that is very, very interesting because for a long time, it was just a foregone conclusion that Brad Arthur was there. And I'm not saying that Brad Arthur is not going to get the job, but it definitely makes you pause when you hear that Mal Meninga might be by every means interested in taking that position on. So we'll have to wait and see. But very, very interesting. Very interesting of what's going on in the coaching carousel up there of finding the first coach of the Perth Bears. And then you have to talk about the players because you only have a couple seasons now to try to get your roster together. You're going to start looking at players in November. But there's quite a few guys that's names are about ready to, how should I say, come out of contract that are going to be definitely circled that the Perth Bears are going to be going after. And don't think that the NRL is not going to help try to bring a couple of these bridges together to get some pretty well-known players out to Perth. And I've heard tons of names thrown around. I'm not going to throw them around here, but I've heard a lot of names that have been thrown around as possibilities of players that want to go out to Western Australia and play. So this is a fluid situation, but I am very interested to see, and I'm very, very happy that the North Sydney Bears, the Western Reds, now have a club that they can call their own in Perth and that they can get 100% behind. And I think you're going to see that club is going to sell a lot of merch because it's already got a strong fan base and they haven't even run out on the field yet. So congratulations to the Perth Bears as being Team 18 in the competition. Now, Shedheads, I should be talking a lot about round 11 that's coming up. And it does have a very important place in my heart because, like I said, I think it's going to be a great round of footy. But I can't believe I'm going to have to do this. I'm already going to have to start talking about 2026. And now you go, oh, Shedda, why would you be talking about 2026? And the reason, Shedheads, I have to talk about 2026 is because the announcement that we have the 4 NRL clubs and the 2 Super League clubs set for Vegas 2026. Vegas 2026, February 28th, 2026. Circle it on your calendars. Start booking your flights. Start thinking what your first drink is going to be, what the first game of roulette is going to be at. Get excited. I'm going to tell you right now, I've never dropped my Vegas, this is what you need to do, but here's what you need to do. You need to go to the Cosmopolitan in their basement. It does have kind of a basement, Shedheads. And go down to the New York Pizzeria down there and get yourself a piece of white cheese pizza. It's my favorite. It's incredible. And it goes great at 12, it goes great at 5, or it goes great at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's incredible. But all that being said, as I kind of go off on a tangent there, the teams have been named. The matches have been set. We already know who's going to play each other. And I think, here's the thing again. I've been on fire lately. I picked 3 of the 4 teams. And you can ask Mrs. Shedadamus. I said the Dogs. I said the Dragons. And I said they're going to bring Kalen Ponga. They're going to bring the Knights. So I said those 3. And then I told Mrs. Shedadamus the last team will be either the Dolphins or the Cowboys, but they've got to keep that element of Queensland flowing down there. And that's what we've got. We got the Cowboys, the Cows. I'm excited because I know what the derby is between the Dogs and the Dragons, and that's what we're getting. We're getting St. George against Canterbury. I'm excited to hear the drums beating. Gus Gould is already calling on the kennel to be broken out in downtown Vegas. He wants Fremont Street to be a dog park. And you know what? When Gus calls for something, usually Gus gets it, right? So this is going to be a great match to watch. I'm excited about that. I'm also excited about seeing the Cows go up against the Knights because I think You let Sharp have the rest of this season to kind of get himself together and really work on his chemistry with Kalen Ponga. I think the Knights have a chance to be an exciting team. We'll get to see Dylan Brown in his number 7 jersey. So, this is going to be a great 2 games that we're going to really get to see there. And then the third game, we get Hull KR versus the Leeds Rhinos. And you would say, Hull KR? Well, Hull KR is playing some pretty incredible footy right now in the Super League. And so, yeah, I'm excited to see Hull KR. Matter of fact, your Shedda has a couple Hull KR jerseys. Now, I probably won't be wearing those in the stadium. Might have it. Man, who knows? Maybe I'll throw one on to show support. But I've got a Captain America Leeds Rhinos jersey, too. So it's going to be interesting. I might have to break out that Captain America Leeds Rhinos jersey now that I think about it. I might have to do that just for that match and then switch that son of a gun out between matches. But anyway, but that's going to be awesome. I think you've got enough star power that you're going to have some fun-looking football. We know already how the Death Star, how that field is really open to fast play. So that's going to be exciting. It's going to be great. I know tickets are not on sale yet, so be paying attention. I know they're going to drop here in the next day or so. I've got my connection who's supposed to be in touch with me is the moment they go on sale. So just keep your eyes open and your ears open, Shedheads, because I think this is going to be another epic Vegas extravaganza. I'm already starting to detox, so I'm ready to go into that situation, ready and prepared. But how exciting, right? We're already talking about 2026. We're already talking about the invasion of Vegas again. Great stuff all the way around. And finally, I want to close out 40-20 by saying congratulations to the Lady Blues in capturing the Women's State of Origin for 2025. I have not watched Game 2 yet. That is going to be my match tonight after Mrs. Shedadamus goes to sleep. I'm going to watch that match in full detail. I think I did hear that Jess Surgis might have got hurt, so that already hurts me because I'm a big Jess Surgis fan. But it's going to be a fun match to watch. I do think the girls' game, the ladies' game, the women's game is exciting. It's really good footy. There's no wrestling. It's just straight tackling and get on with it. So, but congratulations. I know that a lot of those girls are heartbroken. A lot of those ladies are heartbroken last year for the Blues because I think they thought they should have won the series last year, but they've already put this thing on ice and they still have a third game to play. So, congratulations to the women of New South Wales on winning the State of Origin. Now, as we go into our picks for round 11, mental health round, I still would like to go back and say your Shedda went 5 for 8. I'm going to say it was really 5 for 7 because there was a darn draw in there thing. There was a draw in there. I can't control that. So I want to say I was 5 for 7. All right, whatever you want to say. I still was over 50%, right? But we start the round off on Friday night because the women own Thursday. So let's go to Friday. We've got kicking off the round, the Dylan Brown Cup, the Eels versus the Knights at McDonald Jones Stadium. And because it's up in the Hunter, your Shedadamus is going with Kalen Ponga and Sharp. I'm taking the Knights over the Eels to start off round 11. But we get a doubleheader. And that second match is one I think is going to be beyond exciting. And that's the Chooks versus the Bulldogs at Acor. I went back and forth with this because I thought after the highs that the Doggies had, it might be tough. And don't forget, the Chooks had the round off. They had their bye, so they're fresh. They're ready to go. Lindsey Collins is coming back for the Chookies. So I'm still going with the Dogs, though. I still am going with the Dogs. I think that they're going to be playing at home. I think that's enough to kind of take them over the top. So I'm going with the Dogs in a close one over the Chooks. Saturday, we started off, and we know this is going to be a rocking stadium because it's the Waz versus the Dolphins. We already know the support the Waz get up in Queensland. And so I have a feeling, unfortunately for you Finns fans, you guys might be outnumbered on home soil, because the Waz will be representing. And for that reason, and because of how well their footy has been going lately, I'm taking the Warriors over the Dolphins. The Oreo filling match of the day, the go-between match, Sea Eagles versus the Cowboys up in Townsville. Because it's up in Townsville, it's going to be greasy. I'm going with North Queensland. Now, I'm really confused what Todd Payton's doing, sitting Jake Clifford down and putting Purdue in the halves. I know Purdue is an exciting player to watch, but Jake Clifford has been playing some really good footy. That club has been they've been stabilized since Jake Clifford has come into the halves with Tommy Dearden. So I'm really kind of shocked that he made this move. I'm not taking anything away from the explosion that is Purdue, but I don't know if you should be moving Jake Clifford out of that halves pairing with Dearden. Even with that being said, because of the turmoil that's going on with Manly, I'm still going with the Cowboys getting the victory up in Townsville. And then to close out Super Saturday, the match I told you about, maybe not the same type of hate as the Book of Feuds, but I've got the Storm versus the Shockies. And I'm going with Team Nico. I think it's a night match. We know the Melbourne Storm play different at night compared to afternoon games. And I think with it being in the Shock Park area, with it being down in the Shire, I'm going with the Sharks. I think that Nico and Trindle are going to show out. And the guy that gets no respect, William Bubba Kennedy, I think Kennedy is going to have a really good match. I think he's going to lift his level knowing that he's got a head-to-head matchup with Pappenhausen. So I'm taking the Sharks. I'm taking the Sharks over the Storm. Sunday, Dragons versus the Broncos kick it off. Man, with what's going on with Madge, I almost picked St. George, the Red V, but I'm still going to hesitantly pick the Broncos to get the victory since it's at home. But I will tell you right now, Shedheads, I would not be surprised if St. George gets the victory. But I'm going to right now think that Madge is going to try to get, Ezra Mam's going to be back this week. And I think he is going to add a little bit of excitement. He's going to be, I think he could be the wild card in that match. And please, hey, Brisbane fans, please don't boo your own guy. Don't boo Ezra Mam. The courts already gave their verdict. They already gave their penalty. So the guy has done what he needed to do. Cheer the man on, would you? He's your player. So try to show a little class there and don't boo your own guy. But I got the Broncos over the Dragons. And next up, you got Kieran Foran and the Gold Coast Titans versus the Raiders. Unfortunately for the Titans, that match is down at GIO Stadium in Canberra. You know that team plays differently in front of their faithful. I was a little shocked to see that there was some boos down in the nation's capital after that match that they lost from the come behind from the Doggies. But I think that Ricky gets those boys ready again. They rebound, get back in the win column, and I've got the Raiders beating the Titans in Kieran Foran's return match. And finally, the match to close out round 11, mental health round, the Rabbitohs versus the Tigers. Now, I almost went back and forth with this one too, because I think that Benji's going to have the Tigers ready to play. They've got to save face a little bit. They've got to get back that mindset that their defense is going to rise back to the top. The Galvin and Luai are going to start to dictate play. But when I saw Alex Johnson is going to come back, and after what I saw with Latrell, I'm going with the Rabbitohs to ride that momentum of that Brisbane victory to beat the Tigers in a close match. I just think that the Rabbitohs might have been a defining moment last week for them over the Brisbane Broncos. Let's go over the picks again. We've got the Knights, the Dogs, the Waz, the Cowboys, the Shockies, the Broncos, the Raiders, and the Rabbitohs. And finally, for my gun of the round, I have to go with the captain, Stephen Crichton. 1 try, 4 of 6 in conversions, 161 running meters, 3 line breaks, 1 line break assist, 2 try assists, 4 tackle breaks, and 9 tackles made for the man in the headgear, the captain, Stephen Crichton. But what a performance. What a performance that man had against the Raiders on, foreign soil. So, Shedheads, thank you for putting up for my incredible voice last week. I hope I did not deter you from coming back and getting back in the trenches with us here at Outside the Sheds. Really excited about this upcoming week. I hope you guys are just as excited as I am. But like I tell you week in and week out, take care of each other. Try to help someone across the street if you can. Just be the best you possibly can be. Or as I also say, stay out of trouble or don't get caught. So that too. But until next week, this is your Shedadamus signing out with very, very strong pipes if you haven't heard. But until next week, see ya!
And that was another fantastic episode of Outside the Sheds with Corey Jackson, talking all things NRL and all things sports. So please remember to smash the subscribe button and share this with your family and friends and show them what Australian sport is all about.